CNN international security editor Nick Payton Walsh is on the heels of Ukrainian forces as they push back Russian troops in a truly remarkable military offensive, reclaiming and liberating large regions of their country.
Just ahead is Russia in retreat. The road cut by a bridge blown 4 days ago as they fled. A lightning Ukrainian advance along the riverbank here. Russian jets firing back. Kiev's forces again moving around an enemy stuck in park and reverse. Left in Russia's wake, this older anti-aircraft system, still working, we're told, and the tatty signs of how they lived in the open.
Они убежали до этого. Saying they didn't find any bodies here and they just ran and left it.
In Dudchani, a rush to gather the harvest. Since March, the Russians moved in next door, until Monday, when they seemed to have ditched even their clothes. The air is only slightly freer now, but still here, they spent last night underground. At night, it's hardest, he says. You just don't know who's shooting where. We brought our food down here so it doesn't get torched. Most of his wife's family live in Russia, but here, the Russians came to live next door to them. One night, drunk and armed. One came out and said, "Who are you?" waving his gun at us, she says. He was drunk. It was pretty dangerous, adds Vladimir. They are literally in the crossfire here. The less you know, the longer you live, says Kolya, under the trees, worried about drones. We lived a good life, never touched anyone. All along the road, the detritus of a failing empire on the run. The Ukrainians struggling to keep up with what was left behind. Here, in Havlivka, on Sunday, they took 50 prisoners, including newly mobilized conscripts. This soldier's home is literally in sight, in occupied land, so he doesn't show his face.
Your house is just over there.
There's no greater motivation, he says. We didn't ask them to come here. Home, everyone home. It is our land.
Remember the smell of your home. It's Chas.
Mama!
For others, home is almost a trap.
Mama!
Luba is stuck here as her 92-year-old mother can't walk. She's hidden under the bedding. They have only milk and biscuits to eat. And when there's shelling, there's no basement. So Luba just lies on top of Mama. Imagine not being able to move when the ground is shaking.
Мамочка, тобі таблетки від голови принесли. Чуєш, що я кажу?
Чую.
5.04.30 году вона пережила ту війну. Будемо старатися цю війну пережити.
She covers her again, so she doesn't fall out of bed when she goes out. Outside, the highway is busy. However fast Ukraine moves through here, nothing can be undone or bring the old silence back.
Now, Wolf, it's important to remember in the talk of all these nuclear threats exactly how poorly Russia's conventional military are doing on the ground day by day. We've come across abandoned positions where it appears they barely had bottles of water, barely had food, barely had sponge mats to sleep upon. And so it's important to remember that when you're talking about the effectiveness or perhaps the willingness to use of Russia's most complicated, most deadly threat. Wolf?
CNN's Nick Payton Walsh in the war zone for us. Nick, be careful over there. Thank you very, very much. Let's discuss all of this with the former CIA director, John Brennan. His book is entitled Undaunted, My Fight Against America's Enemies at Home and Abroad. It's now out, by the way, in paperback as well. Director Brennan, thanks so much for joining us. Let's start with President Biden's very stark warning. Is he right that Putin is raising the stakes, potentially, of nuclear Armageddon?
Well, Wolf, as was just reported, it's clear that Russia has suffered very major setbacks on the battlefield, and the Ukrainians are on a roll. And while that's good news, there's also some worrisome consequences and implications of that, which is that Putin has to find some way to reverse his fortunes on the battlefield, which has raised the specter that he might opt to use his tactical nuclear weapons in some manner. Even though it might not be effective or efficient on the battlefield, it would be a way to send a signal that he's not going to relent. And so I think President Biden, who has been very concerned about the potential for Russia's use of these tactical nuclear weapons, raised his concerns publicly last night at dinner. And so therefore, I think it is something that not only President Biden, but others are looking at what to do in response if indeed Putin decides to go down that tactical nuclear route.
Multiple officials, Director Brennan, have cautioned that what the president said last night isn't based on any new intelligence. So do these potentially off-the-cuff remarks by the president play into Putin's hands?
No, I don't think so. I think at the beginning of this war, a number of months ago, we thought that the chances of it going nuclear were very, very low. But I do think over the last 8 months, again, given these setbacks that Russia has, I think people are thinking about it and worrying about it more seriously. And so therefore, I think what President Biden is doing is making sure that people understand that this is a very dangerous situation. And while I don't think we're on the cusp of Armageddon, I don't think that President Biden really meant that either. I think what he's saying is that this could enter some type of stage where the use of tactical nuclear weapons is not all that unthinkable.
Yeah, it's a horrible, horrible thought even to think about that. But clearly it's on the mind of the President of the United States. Director Brennan, I also want to get your analysis on North Korea right now. How do you read this latest flurry of missile launches by North Korea? Beyond trying to gain the world's attention, is this a sign North Korea is seriously advancing right now its own military capabilities?
Well, we know that North Korea has nuclear warheads, and it has delivery systems, these different types of missile systems, short, medium, and intercontinental. And so it continues to refine the weaponization, meaning the matching of those warheads with these ballistic missiles. And so by testing it, I think it wants to gain greater confidence that should it choose to go that route, it will be able to carry out a strike as it wants. And so I think we can never ignore North Korea's military developments, because it does pose a threat to the entire East Asia region and the United States itself.
Yeah, by all accounts, Director Brennan, the Biden administration is bracing for the possibility that Kim Jong-un could launch North Korea's 7th nuclear test. What levers does the U.S. have right now to try and tamp down this increasing aggression? The tension is very, very intense right now.
Well, as you know, North Korea is under numerous and very major sanctions. And so therefore, I think what the United States is doing, as it's been conducting its training exercises with South Korea, will work very closely with our regional allies. But I wouldn't be surprised if Kim Jong-un decides to conduct another nuclear test. But quite frankly, I think there's very little that we can do to prevent him from doing so. I just think we have to be prepared to work very closely with our allies and partners in the region to do everything possible to be prepared for any type of military move that North Korea might make. I don't believe it's planning to do anything at this point. I think it's just trying to continue to develop its military capabilities. And so therefore, I think we have to stay focused on it. And although we're interested in what's going on, obviously, in Ukraine and with Russia, we cannot neglect or ignore what's going on in the Korean Peninsula.
You certainly can't. The former CIA Director John Brennan, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it very, very much.